As you're defining your schema, you may want to define specific rules and behaviors for some of your columns. This is done using constraints. For this lesson, we're using the in-memory database, and I'm going to start by creating a table. So I'll type create table, and we'll call it test, and we'll give it 3 columns, each of them text columns, and we'll insert a row of data into it. So here I'm just inserting data into the A and B columns. The C column, I'm not inserting any data into it, so we would expect it to be a null. And we'll go ahead and take a look at the row. And I'll press the Go button. And there's our result. We have 1 and 2 in columns A and B and a null in column C. It's exactly what we expect. So column C has this null because we didn't specify a value for column C. I can use a constraint called not null in the definition of the column, and then this behavior will no longer be allowed. And so this insert will generate an error. If I press go here, you see we have an integrity constraint violation. Test.c, that's the C column in the table test, may not be null because we have this constraint here in the definition of the column that says it cannot be null. So instead of a not null constraint, you may want to give the column a default value like this. And so now, when you don't specify a value for that column, the word panda will be inserted instead as the default. So when I press go, column C now has the value panda. So even though I did not specify a value, it gets that value because that is the default constraint. Another common constraint ensures that every value in a column is unique. So here in the A column, I can put in the unique constraint, like that. And then let's just duplicate this insert with exactly the same values, and this should generate an error. So when I press go, we get an error in query 3, that's the third one down here, the insert, and another integrity constraint violation. Column A is not unique. So if we change that value in column A and press go, now you see that it works, and we have the other column that says 7. Now it's worth noting that depending on your database system, null values may be exempted from the unique constraint. So if instead of this 1 here, I had a null and I have another null, now when I press go, you'll notice that it allows those 2 nulls, even though we have the unique constraint. This is a really common behavior. Most of the major database systems actually operate this way. If you don't want this behavior, there may be a configuration option in your system to change it, or you can combine 2 constraints and use the not null constraint along with the unique constraint like this. And now null values are forbidden in that column altogether. When I press go, you see I get integrity constraint violations for both of those. So these are some of the most common constraints. Most database systems also have additional constraints that work in their particular environment. You'll need to consult the documentation for your database system to learn what additional constraints may be available.